Welcome back to another edition of The Yards. A sadder Yards, a less optimistic Yards, a less fun Yards because the draft is over. Bummer, Bear, wouldn't you say?
It's like the day after Christmas. You play with some of the new toys. You realize some are pure shit, and you have your GI Joes out. Did you ever have GI Joes, Nikki?
Yeah, any like army man or like someone that I could conceive would kill another person I was into. It wasn't as like the military industrial complex was not as big when I was a kid. Max Steel, you know about Max Steel? That was
No.
cool.
That was cool stuff.
Yeah, it was cool stuff.
All right, so let's get right into it. I think how do you feel post draft? How do you feel about the Jets' vision here and moving forward? How do you think about the draft?
It was about what I expected in terms of final grade. I expected to feel about a B about the draft, which is where I landed. It got progressively worse in some ways, but I understood pretty much every pick, and the process was defendable. It was defensible, and I feel okay. I love the Membu pick, which I'm sure we'll get to, and I appreciate the fact that they had their board and they stuck to it, and it was predictable in some ways. It was safe. I hear that word a lot when reading some of these, post-draft takes on each teams and grading each team. But I feel all right. I feel about where I thought I would be, which is about a B draft, which I guess if we could hit some singles in this draft, I'd be happy.
An actual B would be nice for the Jets in a draft. We haven't had a B in, B is a good grade. B is a 3.0 GPA. You bring it home to your parents, and they're happy that you got a B, and you're almost on the honor roll. It's a little tough to tell, but let's just go pick by pick. So I think we both like the Membu pick. I would have loved a defensive tackle there, but Membu and I have a lot to say about the offensive line. Just what are your thoughts on Membu?
Yeah, I think he's awesome. I think it's easy for us in particular, but for a lot of fans, not just of the Jets, to worry, is he a shorts and shirts monster? Is he a big combine riser? And think of Mekhi Becton specifically for the Jets with his size, but that's not the case. It matches up on tape with him. All across the process, he was a rising star, but that wasn't to say that it was meteoric, where there was nothing tangible to hold on to when you watched him at Missouri. So I feel really good about it. I think that, the whole plug-and-play thing, I think, is sometimes overused. I think he truly is a starting right tackle in this league, which potentially a really good one, and I think that is invaluable. If you look at the board, your boy Mason Graham was gone. I wouldn't have loved that, but I would have understood it, and it's the same thing with Membu, where even if you don't love the player, which I really like the player, you have to like the process there, and I was really okay with it. I had a preference, which I'm sure we might get to, but Membu is definitely
I don't know if it was
a good pick.
A preference or a perversion.
Yeah, I had an Ashton Genty perversion, which I stand by. But some of that also had to do with I wanted him to be on the board because I wanted to field calls. It wasn't just about drafting him, but there was I'm sorry, Justin Fields and Ashton Genty. That's an identity the same way Membu and building on the offensive line is an identity. So I was a little perverted,
I want to piggyback off that. I mean, is this the best positional group the Jets have had in the past, since we'll just kind of say it, the before playoffs, the era of my daughter not being alive and the Jets making the playoffs? Is this the best position group that they've had? I mean, I guess maybe you could say the cornerback room last year, but the whole secondary was very flawed. This offensive line, you go, Olu to Simpson to Titman to AVT to now Membu. This has the potential, and the key word is potential, to be the best offensive line in football. And I don't say that lightly.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited about that. In a way, the Jets have done something, and I think you probably saw it. What was it, 4 first-round picks on their offensive line in the past 5 years. Now, Becton, of course, isn't with us anymore, but Simpson's probably their best offensive lineman after last season. This is a young, I think Simpson's the oldest at 26. relatively inexpensive. It's going to get a lot more expensive with AVT. Do you think AVT's on the Jets next year or in 2026?
We touched on this last episode. I don't. He feels like the odd man out from that 21, 22. Have to pay all those guys to me. But a lot of it depends on this year.
That's interesting. I don't know if they can. Man, it does depend on this year. If he stays healthy for the year, if he's just an average or above average guard, you let him walk.
Where are you at with AVT? Because I think this is an interesting place to go. I know it's a little bit of a derailment, but it is on topic where I loved it. I remember you were to give you your flowers. You wanted to stick and pick, and Darisaw was on your mind for a lot of that time, especially post-Zach. We were in that post-Zach bliss in the Mormon Mahomes. Yeah. And I was okay with it because I loved AVT. Because I thought, much like the Jets propaganda, the One Jets Drive propaganda illustrated, what they thought too was that AVT wasn't going to be there and that he was a potentially all-pro level guard. I think it's safe to say, not just with injuries, but also with, frankly, just his play, not that it's been bad by any means, he has not reached that potential, those heights. So where are you at 3-4 years later with the AVT pick in general, and where are you at with him in general? Because I'm still a fan, but I'm a little disappointed. Maybe it was my expectations.
I think this is a big year, right? So he's going into the offseason for the first time really healthy, and that's a huge thing. I think people miss that all the time. I still think the Aaron Rodgers effect, it will wear off. So this is the year. I mean, this is the year he's going to get paid. So if he's going to become, and do I think he's an all-pro type of player? Probably not. Do I think he could be a Pro Bowl type of player? Yeah, I do. I think he could be a Pro Bowl type of guard. He's been versatile. He's a winning player. Is he worth $20 million? That remains to be seen. But I think he could be a Pro Bowl player. I think again, this is the season we're going to find out, and we need some veterans. Again, we can't let a guy like AV. We can't go 5-12 and let all Pro Bowl type of player just walk. Like, we can't. That doesn't make any sense. We haven't made the playoffs in 15 years, and we're letting Pro Bowl guys walk like DJ Reed. Another frustration there. But I'm fine. I think this is the year we find out. And would it shock me if he makes the Pro Bowl this year with Tippmann on his left and Membu on his right? No, it wouldn't shock me at all. I doubt anyone would be shocked that if he makes the Pro Bowl this year.
Definitely not. And I think a lot of his value has been illustrated with his versatility, being able to kick out, to tackle, and be solid. And I think that gets a little bit... people talk about that almost like it's nothing, where it's like that is a huge value, and when you traded up for him and potentially missed out on a Darisaw or just gave up those assets, that versatility was in mind at the time. Some people, when they had him a first-round grade, they had him as a tackle. And then a lot of people was like, oh, it's the classic line you hear about these undersized tackles, or maybe just tackles that have a couple of limitations. He can kick inside to be an all-pro guard. It's like said a lot, but it doesn't seem to have happened as much, and it was said a lot this draft. I still think there was value there. Should we have given up the assets? Maybe not. Should we be paying him $20 million a year? Contract year AVT. I am happy I hope he balls out and is amazing, and then that's a really nice champagne problem.
So let's go over the line, and we're going to talk about the ceiling for these guys. What's Olu, the best version of Olu?
Oof, man. I mean, I think a lot of Jet fans specifically, because we can only live inside our own heads, the Brick comparison from a personality standpoint, from a steadiness, from the ability to potentially be a 10-year starter, which is the biggest misnomer in the NFL. 10 years is really hard. I think that does make sense. He is so athletic. And he was so... You forgot about him last year. By far, in my opinion, I don't even think it's close. The biggest bright spot of last year was Olu before the injury. His ceiling, to me, is a top 3 tackle in the league.
Yeah.
In a top 10 offensive asset that's not a quarterback. I think he has that ceiling of someone where you would start a franchise with, potentially.
So how about Simpson? What's his ceiling?
Simpson, I think we saw the best of him last year. That's not to say that that's not solid, but I don't think that you're going to reach another level. I think that he's nasty. I think that he gets the identity of what we want to be, too. I think he ultimately is going to be one of the better fits on that line. If you told me someone has to work out on this line, someone has to survive the first year of the Glenn regime, Simpson would be the answer, other than Olu because of just youth. But just Simpson makes a lot of sense. where I think that he's going to fit the running scheme that they want. And I really liked what I saw last year.
So Simpson could be a top 10 guard in the league, left guard. Yeah,
at least if we're talking about the run game.
Yep. How about Tippmann?
Yeah, I liked the Tippmann pick at the time. I think that there's a lot of value there. He's young. He's still young. I think that he's played well. He is someone that I think more than anybody on the line was affected by Rodgers. I don't know positively or negatively, but just being the center, just playing the position is going to have the most intimate relationship from a day-to-day standpoint with the quarterback. So I'm interested to see how he navigates to a Justin Fields, someone who's a lot more his contemporary. But I liked what I've seen. I think that he's probably the worst player on the line. I hope he is, in a way. Like that's almost this working out is him being the worst player on the line. But I think he's a good center.
Yeah, I think he's. I'd have him ranked. His ceiling could be the 12th best center in football. Just a good football player, makes a couple Pro Bowls. He's not going to dominate, but if he is your weakest link on that offensive line, that's really exciting. We talked about AVT. We talked about Membo. This is a really young, inexpensive, hungry offensive line that seems like it's going to get coached up. We're going to talk about that a lot later. It's exciting, and that's like I'm legitimately excited. Now we don't have a tight end who can block, and I think that should be rectified. It's a frustration that we both had for many years. Can't we just find a guy who's just an absolute tank and put Carter Warren as a tight end and just have him destroy guys? I don't care, but just none of our tight ends can block. It's a little bit. At least
situationally, I would have liked to see some innovation there, especially like we can't move the fucking ball. Like let's maybe do something a little bit differently. The Carter Warren tight end thing is not a joke. I mean, to try something, which with Eggstrand maybe there might be some moves like that.
So I'm super excited about that and the offensive line. I'm excited that they had that vision. I like strength on strength. This team has been bullied by, over and over again. They've been bullied by good teams, and that should stop this year. So that is definitely my cause for excitement about this draft, and specifically about this team going forward. Is I think this team will actually get better and stronger. And again, following that Detroit kind of model of let's have a great offensive line, and let's just go out and add those pieces. And we both know you can always get a nice receiver for a second or third round pick. And there's a guy out there, talk about positional weakness real quickly. Were you disappointed that we didn't draft a wide receiver with the second or third round pick?
I more so had an issue with the receiver we ultimately took in the fourth, as opposed to who we drafted in the third. Because if I recall, and I should do a better job and have the board in front of me, I don't remember there being someone exactly who I wanted. I was a big Higgins guy from Iowa State. I know you were too, and he went ahead of us in the second. That would have been my preference, as opposed to a Mason Taylor in the second round, which I know we'll get to. Where we were at in the third, I was okay with the Thomas pick. I thought it was interesting, and I liked that they got their guy. There wasn't a receiver on the board in the third round that I was like, okay, you have to get, a Noel from, a similar. Yeah. I wasn't in love. Arian Smith, we'll get to, but I was okay with it. They need to address it, though. It's not something that can just be like, okay, it didn't fall to us in the second or third round, so we're done. There needs to be another NFL receiver on this roster.
I think there's a guy. I think there's a perfect guy out there, and his name is Keenan Allen.
Yeah, I mean, how many? There's only one ball in Chicago, right?
Yeah, well, he's a free agent.
Is he a free agent? Okay.
Yeah,
it was a 1-year deal.
Yeah, so why don't we just? Look. I'm not saying he still have a lot left in the tank, but he's got enough. Be in the right spot. He's going to be open a lot with Garrett. Some of I think out of their kind of stable of other guys, we have a bunch of 3 and 4 wide receivers. We just need a professional number 2 for a year, maybe 2 years. So let's sign him to a fake 2-year deal and $10 million, a year. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
He's a little bit less reliable.
Injury
Tyler Lockett signing from an injury perspective. It was like Lockett, he plays every day, but it's the same idea, and potentially with a little bit of a higher ceiling with Keenan Allen. So that's I would definitely be in. I think you need another guy, another professional. The crossers, the mesh between Garrett and Keenan might be a nice safety valve for Justin there, so he's not just forcing it to Taylor and Garrett, which right now would be the play, I think. which would be easy to defend. It'd be easy to defend. So you need another guy.
So let's talk about the second round pick, Mason Taylor, who I'll give my 2 cents. He's fine. I think he's going to be a good pro. I think his comp is like a Dustin Keller, which all Jets fans like.
Man.
He's going to be a fine receiver. He's going to try in the blocking game. He's very smooth. Watching his tape, he's just a really good athlete, and LSU really trusted him in big plays. He's super young, which is, again, something the Jets are definitely making an emphasis on and drafting young players. He's fine. Now, he is the definition of a B draft pick. I don't think the Jets thought he was going to be there. I think there were so many good tight ends that went obviously in the first round that a guy like Taylor in another draft probably would have been a late first round pick. So he's a nice value. He's a nice fit. They needed a tight end. I don't think it was a positional need. To me, that wasn't their glaring need, but he's just going to fit in. He's going to be a good player. I wouldn't be surprised if he's just the 15th best tight end in the NFL who can make some plays. That's kind of where I have him, his sailing. What about you?
Yeah, similar, maybe a little bit lower. 18th, we're splitting hairs there. But to me, it was just an overdraft in the second round there. I think that to say that we wanted another tight end, I think is valid, and I wanted one too. You passed on Warren, and I think that was the right decision. But I think that you should have cut your losses there. Maybe looked at the tight end room in the 4th or 5th round. I thought Taylor was an overdraft. A lot of good players on the board left there, and I just would have preferred them addressing a need at defensive line. Maybe even corner earlier than they ultimately did, and then you maybe could have gone receiver in the 3rd round. I wonder if the Higgins, where they had him on their board, I wonder, because I think that he would have really fit this team nicely, and I wonder once he was selected earlier than some people thought, if that kind of changed their plan, or if they always had tight end kind of locked in there. But one thing I want to mention, and we don't normally do this. This isn't normally our thing. We're adults here. But I'm not super into the whole Dolphin or I don't hate anybody. Like, we're just watching sports. I'm not a huge fan of this Jason Taylor's 8 months as a Jet is being looked at. It's very annoying to me. I find it a little annoying. You don't have to hate Jason Taylor, that's fine, but the guy was a huge
he was a Jet
problem
killer
for us.
Yeah.
And just the whole showing the pictures of him with his son, that's cute, I get it, but let's not completely retcon this thing. I mean, if there's anyone you shouldn't like, at least from my age group, Jason Taylor's up on the list.
Yeah, he's up on Chipper Jones in baseball was the guy. He's the Chipper Jones of football for the Jets.
Well, I hate Chipper Jones. But no, totally. No, it's probably the best thing you can compare.
But I do like the pedigree though, so I'll take that though. If the guy makes, I think it'd be an interesting stat to look at about sons of athletes and how much better they do in the NFL. I think he just understands what it's going to take. I'd be surprised if he's just watching him, watching the tape of him. I'd be surprised if he's a bust. That would really surprise me. I'm okay with the pick. Again, I think that there's some things about this organization that I'm starting to like. I think if you put a gun to their head, they know they're not going to be very good this year. So let's not panic. Let's not fit needs. Let's just take the best player available. Again, add a position of need, but not the urgent position of need. They clearly need a defensive tackle and wide receiver, probably need another safety, but this is a multi-year build. Let's do some things very well, and let's not try to address everything. And I like that approach. It's not something that we haven't seen for many years. It just seems like there's actually a draft strategy, and I am encouraged by that. This is kind of the first evaluation of the Aaron and Muji regime, and I like what they're trying to do. So, and I see Taylor fitting in that. I think they probably had him, whatever the pick was, 43rd. I think they probably had him as the 30th best player, and they were super excited to get him, which is everything that I'm reading. So I like that approach.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we talked about the last 2 episodes. It's something that I will not stop talking about. I think it's being undervalued, which is, this is the first time in 10 years that the GM and coach are actually on the same timeline. There was overlap everywhere. Douglas and Saleh, it was kind of fake. It seemed, and I think that they got along. That's not my take here, but it was not literally on the same timeline. Douglas was brought in by Adam Gase. That was the connection. And not since Bowles and McCagnon, where it was we're doing a thing, this is our plan, had we had this. And I appreciate the fact that they are literally in lockstep because they entered their key cards got activated the same day. It was not. There's no. You can't even pretend like it wasn't planned out and going to be in lockstep there. So with that, I'm excited. And then my biggest thing that I love about the Taylor pick, I hope that he was more in the 50s on their board because I think it just would maybe show a little bit lack of evaluation. But that's just one man's opinion. But I like that. I would have liked that too, where it's like, hey man, this is a need. We're not going to overdraft somewhere else. Man, we don't like the D tackles on the board. We don't like the receivers on the board. This guy's our 50th best player, and it's 43. We're not going to split hairs here. We're not going to try to get cute. We're not going to try to trade down. And, we like Denzel Mims. We don't like him at this pick, but we'll like him 20 picks from now. This idea of, I like that. Yeah. And to piggyback off that, I really like that they didn't trade up. They didn't give away assets. To your point, they stuck and picked at all of their major selections. They tried to take who they thought was the best player available because they are at least a year away. And I like that too. I think it does show a healthy regime to start off. The most you can ask for.
And so I know we're about to talk about the third round pick, but I think you have to separate the draft. I always separate the draft at about 100, right? So the first 3 picks, fine. But then, and we've read so much about, the Jets' first 3 picks were so great, but after that they were terrible. I mean, what a ridiculous kind of comment. I mean, if you look at most drafts, you look at the Jets draft for sure, the 4th round to the 7th round, I mean, talk about lottery tickets. So I'm not concerned by that. I really do think there's 2 drafts, the top 100, probably the first 60 picks, 60 to 100, 110, and then everything else. So I really like their overall philosophy. So let's talk about taking the corner with their 3rd round pick. A position of need. I still think, we talked a little bit about Stevens maybe moving to safety, which might make a lot of sense. I'm not sure that's their plan, but it wouldn't shock me if it is. What do you think about their 3rd round pick?
Yeah, I think Jets Twitter was on it immediately of the idea of, okay, Stevens is a safety now. And we talked about it the first episode of the Yards here, the Jets edition. It would make sense. I think they're going to let this thing all come out in the wash. I think they're going to see how everybody is. I mean, Thomas could suck. Stevens could be bad. And I think Stevens is going to get the nod, obviously. If they prefer him at corner, he will start there because he just got paid. As we discussed, potentially overpaid in free agency. I like the Thomas pick a lot. I think I had him highly ranked from a corner perspective. I think that he really fits. I also just trust Aaron Glenn from a standpoint of not that he necessarily knows, but I have to imagine he knows who he wants, which is just as important as him being right, is that he's allowed to be wrong. And that's something that I think is super valuable. And I really like Thomas. I think that he was good value at 73. To be arbitrary, I thought he was around in the top 80. So I think that it was good value at a premium position. I mean, the idea that Stevens can be an athletic, rangy corner potentially, or nickel, or just some sort of hybrid package, a joker, and Thomas be solid, give you the production of somewhere between a Eccles and a Reed, that would be honestly transformative for this defense.
Yeah, I think it's, I don't mind the pick. I think everyone knew that cornerback was one of our weaker rooms. I think the Jets love this guy, and might as well talk about it now. There is the overall strategy of this team that I am hesitant to see if it'll work out, but there is a strategy. Let's draft guys who are big, strong athletes or have a unique physical trait, in his case, it's size and strength for a corner, who has a weakness. Brandon Stevens is terrible with the ball. All the guys they drafted after this 4th round, they have an incredible weakness. The incredible weakness is they're typically incredibly bad tacklers. Or in the case of Arian Smith, he can't catch the ball.
Tough one for a receiver.
Not being able to tackle and not being able to catch the ball are probably issues. But this organization right now is convinced that they can coach these guys up. Okay. It's a philosophy. It seems, again, we've seen this kind of hubris. I saw a lot of that from Saleh and a lot of that from Joe. But we could put anybody next to Quinnen and they're going to dominate. And I guess Kinlaw got paid, so maybe they're right. All the guys that were next to Quinnen got paid. But this is a real philosophy. And the idea of let's just get big, strong, tall, fast athletes, and then we're going to coach them up. So I think as Jets fans, we have to actually begin to have some realistic expectations. I don't want to see Arian Smith next year. I want this guy to be on the practice squad and developing, just like how real teams do this. Let's have some guys that we're going to develop, and we'll start to see Arian Smith next year. We'll start to see guys like
where he'll be 28. He'll be 28 years old at that point.
Yeah, Malaga. All these guys. I like the philosophy. I don't know if it'll work. But it's a better philosophy than I think Joe and Bobby's, the guys who love ball, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my life. And half the guys, they wound up thinking, oh, they love ball so much. I'm talking about Michael Carter and Elijah Moore. The guys were locker room cancers. So well, at least there's something that they can, and they'll be able to cut bait pretty quickly. They'll be able to tell halfway through this year, these guys aren't going to cut it. So you move on and you take another shot next year. I do like the philosophy. It's something the Jets have not done in the past decade. It's the reason that they've been terrible, because we've gotten absolutely nothing from our 2nd to 7th round picks, with the exceptional great signing. And you got to give Joe credit, and you got to give Bobby credit for some of their free agent signings. JFM and signing Quincy, those were all-time great moves. But the draft picks that they've gotten, they just haven't developed. And I do believe it's because of poor coaching.
Yeah, and I think that's a good place to go from Thomas, who I think we both are moderate fans of, to Arian Smith, which I know he's getting killed. But to me, it's just a process thing. And receivers who are on the older side, I made the joke about being 28. Obviously, I think he's 23, going to be 24, and then, who knows where he's going to reach his peak. And not being able to catch, that's one thing. But when you couple that with, I think he's, in my opinion, undersized, and I don't think that he has elite speed, that is where I have trouble with. Actual in the pads play speed, and the idea that he's going to be their version of a deep threat, I just get a little bit concerned, and it feels to me like a wasted pick, just to cut to the chase. And that is the thing that bums me out in the 4th round.
But here's what I have to be encouraged about. The fact that they're even thinking about having a deep threat and throwing a deep ball. It's something that the team hasn't done. That sounds ridiculous, but Aaron did not want to throw the ball downfield last year unless it was down the sideline. He had to make, and this has always been Aaron's MO, and he's one of the greatest throwers in the history of the sport. So he threading the needle down the sideline because he was so petrified of getting picked off. And Bobby, before that, they just didn't throw the ball downfield. So, God, if we just throw the ball, how many times did we say, can we once a half just throw a deep ball?
The Derek Carr play, just throw it up and hope for
at least once a half, just to give some inclination that they're going to try to do it. I'm encouraged by that. That tells me a little bit that they're trying. This pick could be Devin Smith 2.0.
Oh,
but
yeah,
Devin. But at least philosophically, they're going for that. They're going to try to do this. And we signed Mike Williams to be a deep threat. I mean, honestly, did they throw a ball past 20 yards to him all season before they traded him?
Well, yeah, I mean, that was just like, you got a guy who's scared of going over 60 miles an hour when you bottom a Ferrari with your buddy Aaron there. I mean, that never made sense to me. He just didn't want to throw the ball up. So I don't know why Mike was the get there. Yeah, I mean, I obviously am rooting for Arian Smith. I don't see the vision other than what you're saying. But I think that unfortunately we beggars can't be choosers. We do have to be encouraged by simply them just thinking that way. So that would be the optimistic spin there. What are your thoughts on Malachi Moore? Because to me, he was a floor raiser, and I understood it. What about you?
Yeah, I think Malachi's a guy, and again, anything past the 4th round, they're going to know. They're going to know probably by the end of training camp that this guy's going to be a potential starter or get some playing time in this league, or just not athletic enough. So I like the pick. He's obviously a great pedigree. He's a guy that I think, and again, safeties always fall in the draft, and smaller safeties are going to really plummet in the draft. So he's a guy that I think has a real shot of getting playing time for. And would you be shocked if Malachi Moore is the starting safety this year?
I expect him to be. I don't think Tony Adams is very good, so yeah. I expect it to be Stevens at corner, Thomas on the bench, Malachi Moore wins the job. That's what I expect.
Next to Cisco. Yeah, sure. That won't shock me at all. So if they're getting a starting safety who can be in the right spots and make some plays, again, it's something that we haven't had in years.
Well, Marcus May. It's smart. It's the thing we talked about, where it's like a guy who you can trust to some degree. I mean, that's nice. Adams is the opposite of that. He's not that talented, and you also can't trust him.
Yeah, that was just if Adams makes the team this year, I'll be shocked. That's
really
shocked. That was such a Bobby, and
so then bringing him back, that wasn't to you a sign that they liked him. It was more so just like let's just fill the room out and we'll see what happens.
What would they say? It was like $2 million.
Yeah.
So whatever, cut him. If that doesn't work out, they let him go. Now at least we're not forced to overdraft a safety. We got a guy who's the 26th best safety in the league. But I don't expect him. I don't think he plays the way that Aaron wants to play defense. I think they're going to be aggressive defensively, and he's not a guy that I think fits the bill. He doesn't do anything well.
Yeah, I mean some real non-advanced recliner analysis here is guys like Malachi Moore are usually, to me, like a 50% hit rate in terms of, but like true 50 of like 0 to 100, where those guys, those captains at an SEC school, they either come and it's like, oh, why didn't no one draft this guy? An Eddie Jackson type of like, he knows where to be, and Saban loved him, all that kind of stuff. Or they just don't have the measurables and they can't play in the league.
Agreed.
So I think that there is even though he's not this like athletic freak, we usually think about people in terms of this high variance pick as someone being like really raw. They can also be the other way, where it's like, oh, maybe this guy can be an NFL pro for 7 years and be like this level, this Daniel Sorensen for the Jets, hopefully.
Now, do you have any takes on Maluga or Barron?
Yeah, we can couple the Miami guys together, because I don't really. I more so put my trust into the write-ups of people that I do trust, and I don't really understand either one, to be honest. But I'm happy to be proven wrong. I don't really have much intelligent opinions on it. I can offer you unintelligent ones, which is what I mostly do. What do you got?
They can't tackle.
Nice.
But they are going to be...
Sweet.
But they're good at roughing the passer, right? So that's what I think. You have one skill, and again, these are big, strong athletes, good size, great measurables, and the Jets are going to try to teach them how to tackle. It's actually, I think it was Barron who had, or no, it was Maluga, who had the lowest tackle rate in, I think, all of college football, which is impressive. But hey, again, I don't mind this, because if they are coachable and you can teach them to tackle, and they're big, fast, and strong, it works out. If not, who cares? Am I going to be upset if they cut them? Who cares? Like I just don't. Again, if I was a GM, I would have no draft picks in the 5th, 6th, or 7th round. To me, there's very little difference between a 5th round pick and an undrafted free agent. I'd rather just have more money and more focus on my undrafted free agents. And if I could go out, again, if the Jets, looking at this year, if next year I could trade a 5th for Michael Mayer, a 6th for the defensive tackle who can just be a run stuffer, and a 7th for, I don't know, a punter. I don't care. I have just no value in those picks. I think they are incredibly overvalued when it comes to the NFL. So just these are lottery tickets. These are upside lottery tickets, which if you're going to draft them, I'd rather draft an upside lottery athlete. That's it.
Absolutely, and as long as they're comfortable with whatever traits they value, and I hope that they have some, to your point, rushing the passer, then yeah, I mean, that's a true pass rush specialist. That's the idea with Arian Smith, too, to go back to him, where it's if he actually can be a deep threat and provide you true game speed where you have to worry about him, then I don't really care about the fact that he's older and can't catch. Like, I agree. I agree with that process. The worry is that they overvalue things like that. That was the problem with Devin Smith, where it was he didn't actually have the talent in which that they thought. A lot of people just look at it like, oh, he had all the tools, just didn't work out. It's like, well, no, because they drafted him knowing who he was, and it still didn't work out. So it's the elements of the things they banked on didn't work. He didn't have the play speed. He didn't have the over-the-top ability that they thought he did. And that was in the 2nd round, so it was more egregious.
Exactly.
But that's the idea here with Arian Smith, where if he can just do a little bit of what they think he can do, then it's fine. It's a fine pick.
So overall, I think we both agree that this is like a solid B draft. I think I do like the direction the team's headed in terms of I see a philosophy. I think they're going to try to shake some things up. I would not be surprised if some guys get cut. A couple of kind of old Jets don't make it to this new roster as they're really trying to become incredibly young. But I'm hoping that they add, like we're saying, that that they're not hyper focused, and sometimes teams can get almost religious about this idea of being super young and not adding a Zadarius Smith or who would be a great fit for 12 snaps a game, or Keenan Allen to kind of get in that room and stabilize it for a year and see what's left in the tank for, like I said, 1 year, $8 million, 2 years, $60 million that you can get out of real easily. I'd like to see him add some vets there because I actually think, and let me ask you this, Nikki, where do you have, just in the AFC East, where do you have the Jets?
I have them competing with the Dolphins for the second spot there.
Exactly, right? So I think any logical, the Athletic had something, they had the Pats at like the 21st best team, which shocked me. I think Miami feels like this is the year they're going to just implode. It just feels like
that way.
McDaniel is probably a really interesting offensive coordinator. I don't think he's a great head coach. Tyreek is just kind of
is even on the team by the trade deadline.
Exactly. Tua, obviously there's been a lot said. He's a $60 million quarterback who's one hit away. Waddle isn't a guy who was just, if it's just Waddle, really scares me. I just don't like that roster. I don't like that. So, I actually have the Jets in the same spot. I feel like they're in that same breath as the Dolphins. I see the Pats kind of headed down a good direction, but I still think the Jets are a better team. So, if the Jets to go 3-3 in the AFC East, which I think is realistic, right? I don't think that's an unrealistic number. This team should be competing for a wild card spot. Just competing for a wild card spot. That's what they should be.
In the hunt graphic, they should be on the in the hunt graphic.
Until Christmas, when you're going to get your new Jets helmet and everyone's getting you gifts, I think this team should be competitive. Again, it's not saying a lot because half the teams in the AFC make the playoffs. To be in the hunt just means you're not one of the 4 worst teams. I don't think that's a very difficult kind of path for them to go down. And just the way this roster is built, I don't feel like, now of course we don't have a quarterback, but I don't feel like we can be a really bad team with a good defensive line. Good offensive line, a solid defensive line. If we get Justin, JJ back, this team, for them to go 3-14 would be a shock to me.
No, it's a disaster actually. To me, it's the barring a lot of crazy circumstances of a lot of 1-point losses. Obviously, it's a little bit arbitrary, but them being a 3-13 in the way that you mean it is not good. That is not to me the first thing of regime, like the Dan Campbell thing. It worked out. But how bad they were was not a good sign. Yeah. It shouldn't have been that bad. And it worked out and it proved out and it all came out in the wash, which is you wouldn't quit on Glenn after 1 year if they were 3-13. But 6-9 through 15 weeks, which is not a good record, you were in the hunt. And that is the type of thing that I expect. And that if they are the guys, that's what I expect.
They're just, now again, I say that, and we've talked about this a lot before, I don't want them to kind of be this, let's run the ball 40 times a game and throw the ball 7 times a game, because they could go 7-10 being that type of team. I actually think they're going to be aggressive. I do believe that. I'd be very shocked if they're not going to open up the playbook for Fields. And
I think we'd both be out. I'd be out
100%. Right, but a good offensive line. Again, they have really interesting skill position players. Their defense has a lot of talent on it. It would be shocking if this team doesn't win. I think with their over/under is what, 5.5?
I think it's 5.5. Yeah,
it's too low. It's just too low. They're gonna go.
We're hammering that one.
They're gonna look. They're playing Miami and New England 4 times.
Yeah.
Right. So they go 3-1 versus those teams. Like they always actually play Buffalo. I'm not going to say they're going to beat Buffalo, but they just match up. They're built to kind of match up with Buffalo. This team should, by accident, win 6 games. Just the nature of their team. They're just physical, having that offensive line and being able to kind of pound teams with a solid. Where do you have their defense ranked?
Middle of the pack.
Exactly. Yeah, they should have a 15th best defense with incredible upside on certain guys, right?
They're going to have what I was begging for last year, which is going to give up 30 points a couple times, where it's like, oh, it didn't look good there. But then they're going to have those truly dominant performances, not the fake ones under Saleh, where it's like, oh, they didn't really need to move the ball, so they didn't try to move the ball.
Yeah,
like, have the 45-point stinker. because you were trying things, because you blitzed, because you're like, hey man, we're down 3 touchdowns, and the math proves that we need to get a turnover now because we're actually trying to win the game, and we're going to end up giving a 70-yard touchdown up because we tried, as opposed to like, man, if we can get this down to 14 points, it doesn't look that bad.
Or just let's just play field position and try to literally win the game 6-3. And I don't see Aaron being that. So I'm again, my perversion will grow as this happens. But they have a number 1 receiver. The running back room is great. They have an offensive line. I don't know what Justin Fields is. I'd be shocked if he makes it through the season healthy. I don't want to see Tyrod. That's kind of the nightmare scenario. Do you think that Jordan Travis is gonna? I mean, do you have any take on Jordan Travis? Because they didn't draft a quarterback, they signed the guy as a free agent, but it seems like they're counting on him to be their developmental quarterback.
To say this to start at the end, I love that they didn't draft a quarterback. I love that they just sat this one out. I do not agree with the take one every year thing. I've never agreed with that. I don't understand it because I think it clogs things up. I think people don't think about the real terms, elements of that. It's not about the wasting a pick. It's about this guy in your room who you maybe don't believe in. I think that it's bad for morale. And for me with Travis, I didn't like him coming out. To me, these guys who we were at the mercy of all 22 tape if we're lucky. Most of us are at the mercy of broadcast tape, and then some combine measurables. So this whole you don't understand. Jordan Travis is a different level. He's a killer mentally, and he's got the mindset. I can't do anything with that. Like, I hope you're right, because if that could be true. All I can go with is that he's undersized, doesn't have a good arm, and he's not healthy. So I have no reason to think that he's going to be anything on this roster.
Yeah. I expect him. I mean, if he doesn't make it to training camp, I think his career might be over, right? I mean, I think that whatever's happening to his leg is. I'm hoping the guy's going to be okay. There's some stuff got out that the Jets were trying to force him back too quickly.
Yeah, not great PR.
Which makes it's like insane. Like, what an insane. Well, why would the Jets be rushing this kid last year? Were they going to? I mean, this
doesn't make sense. But I don't want to say he's lying. But it doesn't make sense. A lot of things to do doesn't make sense though. So they have that.
All right. So as we wrap up, I want to really do my exercise that I always think looking at the draft after is like looking at your Christmas presents before you open them. That just these boxes look nice. What really we should be doing is looking at drafts from 2 or 3 years ago. Let's just do the draft from 2 years ago. And I think this really kind of talks a little bit about why we stink as an organization. And did you see, Joe, I was all over. I know I was screaming about this, that Joe admitted that they were lost when the Lions took Gibbs. Did you see that clip?
I saw that whole interview. That was interesting.
How does that happen? Honestly, if you have an entire billion, what are the Jets worth? $5 billion, probably $6 billion, whatever they're worth, organization, and your job is to draft, and you say, all right, we're gonna take a shot here with Gibbs, which Gibbs and Brees, super interesting actually, but there's one guy, an intern, that are like, hey Nick, just in case this gets through in our $6 billion organization. Why don't you just do a little work on who else we would draft if Gibbs is gone?
Yeah, I mean, it's very funny. We talked about this a lot off mic during our hiatus, and it was something that we lamented during the WMD pick, which I think it's kind of been a success considering what it could have been, just in terms of what we ultimately were left with. I think of it 2 different ways. Part of me, the sick part of me, defends Joe because I get excited that he was even thinking that way. Because I get excited that he was even thinking about Gibbs because I loved Gibbs. He was a top 5 player for me. He was similar to a Genti where I'm like, fuck it, dude. Let's go for it. These guys who were true field movers. So I like that part of it. But it goes back to the point that I think you will be known for. It'll be on your tombstone, which is the institutional hubris of they thought they were smarter than everyone else, and they thought we're gonna zig when everyone else is zagging. We're gonna take the running back, not knowing that 4 other teams had the exact same thought. And it wasn't just the Jets and the Lions. The Saints, I believe, that were on this as well. A lot of people viewed him as this field tilter, and they were like, we're just going to sneak up on everybody. People think we need a D-end or a tackle or another receiver potentially, but no, we're going to do this. And they thought they were cool. And it's the problem with the bro-y former player thing, I think that they just didn't think about it that much, if I'm being honest.
And the other thing that I really was out on, which was actually upsetting, we should find that clip and play it. The one Jets drive when they literally lied and said, oh, because I'm sure actually what happened is they probably said Gibbs, and they probably said, all right, if it's not Gibbs, we'll get Broderick Jones. And then Pittsburgh traded up for him. And if you watch the one Jets drive, it's just this lie propaganda of, we weren't even interested in Gibbs or Broderick Jones. It was Meyer or Will the whole time. There was no debate. Oh my God. And it's just a lie. Like, I would respect the organization so much more if they said, oh man, they got snapped out in front of us. Like, no, instead they literally edit this to be a lie to make themselves look better, which kind of defines the Bobby Saleh. And I don't even know about Joe. I'm still so mixed on Joe. Joe is a hard guy for me to pin down, but Bobby was just so much about image and just no substance whatsoever. And when they got exposed in the draft, it was just such a bullshit lie that they're going to draft Mayer or WMD, who I think is, I don't know if he's a winning player. He might be a guy. So again, John Abraham, I'm not sure. That's my comp for him. We talked about before. I'm not even sure John Abraham was a winning player. It's a guy that's going to probably get you 10 to 12 sacks a year, but I need to see him in some big games.
You just scheme up for him too. You have these limitations that it's like, it's like a smaller point guard being your primary scorer, where it's like, it's not that it can't work, but just you're working uphill. Yeah, I mean, the thing that really bums me out about the state-run media element of that one Jets drive clip, which we talked about at the time, is like them being liars, or them, that doesn't even bother me. I don't expect much more from them. Them not knowing what to lie about is what kind of bums me out. Like, I remember Rex classically, he did it for Bruce Irvin. He did it for Earl Thomas. I remember that was the big one where he was like, we were going to take Earl Thomas and they sniped us. And it's like, I don't know if that's true, but he was smart enough to know that Earl was that good of a player that he was going to try to make himself look better by saying that I liked him. The idea that of just, we didn't even like insert good player here. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you don't even know what to lie about.
My favorite ever. It's the dumbest. As I near death and my tombstone is getting warmed up, the dumbest thing I've ever seen in the history of organized sports, and of course it is from the New York Jets, is this lie that they had Brett Favre as the number one player on their draft board. And that year they didn't have a first round pick. So you're telling me that you have this guy as your number one player on the draft board, and he's still available at, let's say, 18. And you just don't start as a quarterback, too. So as a quarterback, you have this guy as your number one player on the board, and at around pick 18, where it becomes really realistic to get the guy, that you don't trade up and get him, and then you get sniped the pick before you, and you say, oh, we were so unlucky. Oh, my God, that I would have fired that GM on the spot. Like, on the spot. That's like Cam Ward, the Jets having Cam Ward or Shador as their number one player on the board, and they just don't, we're going to keep waiting for him. It's just the incompetence.
It's insane. They should hope that it's not true.
Exactly. They brag about it. They brag about it.
I hope you're lying. Because it's like, I don't want that to be true because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so offensive. But if you look at the 2023 draft, this is kind of Joe. So we got McDonald and all that debauchery we just talked about. We got Tittman in the second round, who we just spent some time on. Solid player, nice player. We didn't have our third round pick that year. So Carter Warren, we had gotten the fourth round. I actually still kind of like Carter as a swing tackle, developmental type of player. This guy was one of your perversions. Izzy, who is now...
I loved him.
Gonzi. Where is he?
Well, I mean, I don't know.
Where is he?
Where is he?
Yeah.
I
want to wear that shirt.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel like he showed flashes in the preseason. That feels like one of those things where maybe I'm just using it to validate my own arguments, but it feels like one of those, the Jets couldn't find a spot for him. Like, I don't know. I think it's kind of strange.
Yeah, there's a little bit of Jets hubris there. Our running back room is so good that we're going to draft. We're going to draft two more running backs next year.
That just maybe he, there's always we always have the maybe he's an idiot thing, which we don't know these guys. You just have no idea. Like some people are, oh, he's really smart. I didn't know that. Or he's really stupid. I didn't know that. We don't know these guys. Like maybe he's an idiot. I don't know.
And I think Zaire Barnes is still on the team, right?
I don't know. I haven't seen him, so it's tough to say.
And then Bernard Converse, the sixth-round pick.
I loved that pick.
Who missed the year, and I think he is still on the team. And your boy Zach Kuntz is no longer on the squad.
My boy Zach Kuntz?
Yeah, you loved him. You loved
him. Decent selection.
Yeah, he's a seventh-round pick. But again, you look at that draft and you say, all right, we got McDonald and we got Tittman, and we had really nothing else. And you kind of keep going back. We get our first or second round picker on the team, and just nothing else. And again, that's why we stink. It really is. The reason we stink is not because we don't have Pro Bowl type of players. We do. We actually have probably way too many than we should. We just don't have that middle, just a fine player. Like PFF on Sunday Night Football shows, this guy is the 16th best defensive lineman out of 45. No, we don't. We have like the top 3, and then we have the bottom, which we do have in our defensive ends.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you can see behind me, it might have confused some people. My West Coast city is Seattle, and it reminds me a lot of it's not true now, because the Mariners 7 through 9, they're hitting. But the last couple of years, it wasn't that the Mariners were lacking in talent. They had all-star caliber, Silver Slugger caliber players in the top 4 of their lineup, but their 7 through 9, 6 through 9 at times were not. They couldn't hit anything. They were not MLB caliber players. They were batting in the ones. And that is the problem. If you just had MLB caliber players, they could have made the playoffs the last 2 years that they've missed. And the Jets are a very similar organization in a lot of ways. And very similar in that way if you just had NFL guys, pros. We talk about it all the time. Have a receiver, the KJ Osborne, that's my ultimate example. Have that guy in the room, a guy who runs his routes, catches the ball, can break a couple of tackles. He'll have games where he disappears, but he's going to have games where he has 90 yards, and it's all going to come out in the wash of a 673-yard season. We don't have those guys. It's always been a bummer. It's been tough.
So let's see if we can get our first comment. I don't think we've got a comment yet on the pod.
Nobody's interested.
Is it all right for Nick to have a West Coast NFC team? Is that okay? Is it, or do you have? Is that a?
Would people prefer that I blew my? I can't even finish that. Demonetized. Would you people prefer that I was not of this earth? Because I don't have a side piece. You've got 2. I don't have a side piece. Championships. You got 86 and 94. I don't have.
I'm talking about my highlight of my Jets adulthood is losing a heartbreaking game in Pittsburgh, and I don't go running to Seattle to hide my tears.
I'm not running. You need to have, when you have a team, the Jets are the best example of this. When you have a team that is consistently out of the mix in October.
All criminals rationalize their crime, Nikki.
I think that it is perfectly valid to have a vacation. And that's all it is.
So the orgasmic pleasure of this draft from Seattle, because it played all the Nicky hits. It was disgusting.
It was awesome.
How do you give us 1 minute on that? These are guys that you wanted your wife to draft, but instead your side piece drafted.
Yeah. Well, let's see. I have keys to both places, so I get to enjoy.
You got toothbrushes in both.
yeah. So
are you a Mormon, or are you sneaking around? You're not sneaking around.
It's more Goodfellas. It's Friday nights was for the wives, Saturdays for the girlfriends type thing. I might have that mixed up, but I think everybody should. This is my prescription. If you are a fan of a tough luck franchise, get a vacation team that is away from yours, that does not interfere, that you can check in on, that you can enjoy. Because when the Seattle Seahawks drafted Jalen Milroe in the 3rd round, I was beside myself.
Yeah.
Because that was my guy. And that's
the orgasm heard around the world.
Yeah, people are still talking about it. It was so offensive. It's the Seahawks killed it. They crushed it. Zabel was my guy. I think he is if you had to bet on one player in the 1st round making an All-Pro, he would be my pick. Just because
Zabel?
Zabel, 100%. Just because of a guard perspective, I think it's easier to rise, so it's a little bit of a cheat code.
We're going to cut that clip out and post that, make T-shirts
please.
out of it.
Absolutely. It's one of the.
I'll accept as a Jet, an abused Jet fan. I'll accept it. All right, and as an abused Knicks fan, although things have been better, Detroit's. I'll also accept it because it's probably in a lot of ways worse in some ways. But the Mets.
Yeah.
The Mets have not been a horrible franchise in the same breath as the Jets.
No, they haven't been.
So what is your disgusting explanation for that?
Well, some of it is, if you're going to do something, no half measures. Where it's just like, I enjoy the city of Seattle, and in many ways, the Mariners, and the people don't care about this, we'll probably cut this, but in many ways...
People care. People care.
In many ways, the Mariners were the early impetus of this, because my first sports love, because I'm a person where nothing was passed down to me. If my father was a Yankees fan, he was a Giants fan, I didn't like any of that. I could already just tell that was not for me. Evil vibes as a child. And I was a true free agent, and the first team I ever fell in love with as a 6-year-old was the 2001 miraculous Mariners and Ichiro Suzuki. So I always had an affinity for that era, that time and that place. And yeah, I mean, the Mets have done nothing to me. I love them very, very much. But it's just fun, especially in baseball, American League, National League, to be checking into a West Coast team. You've got the Mets at 7 o'clock and the Mariners at 10 o'clock. It's a nice life. I think people should get out of their heads. This is all fake. We're just watching, grown men play a game. And I think that you should... I advise anyone with tough luck franchises to get a little girlfriend.
All right, let's see if we can get some engagement.
Yeah.
Is it all right? Ask the people, is it all right? I think it's perverse, and you should be shackled up and taken away.
Rest assured that anyone with any real opinions, if you don't like it, I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to do exactly what you think I should do.
All right, Nicky boy. We will pick this up next week. Maybe we've got to come up with some blast from the past from the Jets.
Yeah, I think it's time to look back a little bit. This draft was fun. One note I want to just mention before we go, just on Membu, because I don't want it to come across as lukewarm. His RAS score, his relative athletic score, being off the charts. Him, by all accounts, being an awesome guy. This was a home run, first-round pick. I don't want to make it seem like we aren't excited about that, because I think Membu is going to be awesome, and I think that is what makes this grade out to be a B, because of how good he's going to be, and because the rest is so unknown. And then it's just
going to be fun seeing him kick ass. I enjoyed Becton his rookie year, just stone cold stopping
awesome.
Dudes. So I'm happy. Most Jets fans, you think they're happy for Becton getting.
Yeah, I didn't want it to seem like we weren't. I guess it's because I think we're happy. We're happy with Membu pick. I'm excited for that.
Yeah. All right, Jets fans. That's it.